Hello, Tammy.
Hey, are you feeling better?
I'm feeling better enough. I tell you what, like everything seemed like it was against us until we got here, and then I clicked that button that played the intro music, and everything seemed okay.
Yes. Oh, geez, Louise. Uh, so
What a night! What a night! So yeah, I was well. We talked about this on a previous show. I had a business trip last week. I had to go out to Las Vegas for an IT conference that I had to man the booth for the company I work for, and I came home with this with a. It's not COVID, unless my tests lie, and you can go all conspiracy theory on that if we want
right.
to. But yeah, definitely a head cold. Could be the flu. I don't know, but it's mostly gone. Still got some congestion, but
Yeah,
I
I
hate,
can hear
I
it in your
hate,
voice.
I hate going out to Vegas. I may be the only person on the planet that absolutely hates Vegas. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Vegas, party city." No, not for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big. I was there once years ago to watch a fight. Virgil Hill was the light heavyweight champion of the world. He was from North Dakota, so I went out there and hung out with Freddie Roach. He's the world famous boxing trainer now.
Mm,
I missed out on that
okay.
one. I could
Yeah.
I could be running a fight shop with Mickey Rourke right now and Freddie. Anyway, I I didn't really care too much for it either. It just seems um
It's not my
I don't know.
speed.
It's I don't know. I don't care for it.
The whole place is just not my speed.
Yeah. Yep. So what else have you been up to besides healing your cold or
Yeah.
flu and
So I did. So two things. One, I just noticed while I was getting logged into YouTube, which was one of the hurdles to getting the show going tonight. Um, SWP Crawler hit 5,000 subscribers. Yay!
Yay,
Like
awesome.
I'm actually past it. I've
Awesome.
I've been waiting months to hit 5,000, and then I wasn't paying attention, and boom, I've got
Yep.
5,000.
It's kind of like watching a pot of water to boil. It
Yeah,
starts boiling when you're not watching it.
so that's cool. But
Congratulations. Yay.
the other cool thing is while I was at that conference, right? So like I said, it was an IT thing. You're familiar with Amazon.
Yep.
Maybe you're less familiar with Amazon's cloud service, Amazon Web Services. It's really popular in the IT world, right? People like a lot of small businesses or even large businesses run their stuff on Amazon's infrastructure, this cloud thing, Amazon Web Services. Well, they at the show, so the show was all for Amazon Web Service. A bunch of IT people come and they learn about new things that are coming and all the whatever's right, whatever. People that listen to this show probably don't care so much about that. However, remember I was out in Vegas for another show like 2 months ago, 3 months
Mhm.
ago.
Yep.
Came across that electric desert racer,
Yep. Yep.
which was pretty cool. We talked about on the show a little bit. Well, this time around, Amazon or AWS, this subsidiary of Amazon, they have disaster response vehicles,
Why would
right?
they have them?
You're right, right? So they actually had two. The one I looked at was actually a 4xe Jeep Wrangler 4xe. The other one was, I
Uh-huh.
think, a Dodge pickup, but I don't know if that was electric or not. I didn't stop and look too closely at that one. I was more interested in the Wrangler because the Wrangler, it's a 4xe, which I thought, oh, okay, whatever. They're a tech company. They're trying to be more green. That's why it's a 4xe, but it's not. They actually don't use the battery when they take it out uh, to do disaster
Disaster,
recovery
right?
stuff. The battery, they got a company to make some sort of a tap for the battery that'll power equipment in the back of the Jeep. So the engine
Oh.
runs and keeps the battery charged, and then they have some of Amazon's equipment in the back of the Jeep, so that they can do stuff like a hurricane hits, for example, and they send out crews with drones to go survey all the damage.
Yep.
And then they have to
Yep.
take all that data somewhere to process it to determine where things need to be repaired or whatever.
They
They
probably
can
have
do it.
video equipment in that Jeep, I bet you.
They do it on site with this Jeep.
Yeah.
I thought that's pretty darn cool, and it made me wonder: like, are there other things they could do? Like a big problem that disaster-stricken areas have is like communication services go down. Telephone lines are down, cell towers are down, right? It makes me wonder if they can start to leverage things like this to help in that sort of an aspect too.
Right.
So I think it's pretty cool. I got their contact info. I'm going to try to reach out to them and see if they would be willing to talk to us on the show because I think that'd be a pretty cool interview.
So the first thing I thought of was I remember back in 1993 I was in Homestead, Florida, covering the hurricane. Me and a reporter were there,
Hmm.
and we had it was the 3/4 inch videotape way back then, and we had our editing machines hooked up in our, I can't remember what kind of vehicle it was at the time, but in the back, and I was sitting there editing, but we had to find power,
Right.
plug in, and after a hurricane, you can't find that. So we struggled, and we found people with generators that would help us.
Yeah.
Um, but what a great idea for that too. I mean, but nowadays TV's different. They just put their stuff on their phone.
Yeah.
Um,
But to be able to edit it out of the field, I mean, I guess all you really need is a sufficiently powerful laptop that you can
right,
run, your
right,
editing software on
right.
nowadays. You don't need a whole
Because
deck and tapes and
no, right. Times are different, but it would have been
yeah,
cool back then.
yeah.
Um, so
But it makes me wonder if the company that let them tap into that built that tap to get into the battery would consider making that for general use, right? Because
right,
imagine for overlanding or for off-roading or whatever, right? Just the
right,
ability to have that much power at your disposal for running stuff like, I don't know, your your fridge or whatever, charging your
right,
phone back up, like all
right.
kinds of stuff that you could use that for to just have
Possibilities, yeah,
general use electricity.
right.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I guess they worked with Stellantis to make this thing, so it's not like they just
Uh-huh.
bought a Jeep and then hacked it to
Reconfigure,
pieces.
right.
They actually got partnership out of Stellantis to get it done. So I think it's pretty neat.
And you have to be on your game nowadays because technology is moving so fast. You
It
have
is.
your ideas, even with, all this AI chats, GPT, all of that stuff,
That
everything
was
is,
all over this conference was AI because that's the
yeah.
big thing in the industry right now. Oh, AI this and AI that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's crazy how fast. I don't think people realize how quickly this is changing our world.
Yeah.
I mean,
But is it better?
no, I don't think so. I don't.
I don't think it's better yet.
No.
I think in fact I was reading an article just earlier or maybe it was just a post on social media. This guy, he's like I forget who it was, but he's some sort of a writer, tech writer. And he asked it wasn't the Chat GPT AI, but the other one, the one that Microsoft is running, Bard, I think they call it.
Mhm.
He asked it to tell him about himself. He put in his name. He said, "Tell me about this person." He put in his name, and it gave him three different responses that were wildly different.
Right.
Like one of them had him like as some sort of a bioengineer, and one of them had him as like some other completely unrelated thing. And he's like, "This this is what AI excuse me, this is what AI is gonna tell us." He's like, "I'm unconvinced."
I mean, there's still so many glitches,
Yeah,
the information
yeah,
that it has, but once it figures out all that stuff, ooh.
yep,
Yeah, because I
then
asked it, "Do you know who Jeep Mama is?" And had no idea. It said I was
yep,
somebody totally else. But
then the machines take over once it figures it
yes,
out,
I'm
and
really, really nice to when I talk to Chat GPT. I'm like, "Thank you. You're the best. You're
yeah,
awesome." So
yeah,
when they do take over, they
it'll
won't
remember
hurt.
that.
Yeah, it'll remember me.
Remember that. At the conference, we had a company come in that you would take a picture of yourself with the tablet they had hooked up, and then they had a little robotic arm that would draw you. It was just basically to get people to come over and ask,
Right.
get into the booth, that kind of thing. And we were having problems with them on the first day, and I told the girl that was there trying to get them working. I'm like, this is how it starts. This is the beginning of the robot uprising.
Uh-huh.
First they annoy us, then they take over.
Yep, yep, so true. So
Anyway,
well, I haven't been well, I've still been busy working redoing my blog and YouTube videos, but I wrote a book and I published it.
look at you.
Yeah, How to Declutter Your Life, a Step-by-Step Guide. I
How
kind of
How do you publish a book? I always thought it was
oh,
like an arduous process. It sounds like you've got it down to a science.
not anymore. You can just go to KDP, it's, Amazon, and you just follow their simple little steps and You know, it's pretty easy. I had it uploaded, in one day. Obviously, the book is not that long. It's just, like a little guide. I just
Yeah.
basically took all the stuff that I've been blogging about over the past 10 years. So it's pretty simple. I'm not expecting to be a New York Times bestseller or, um, make millions of dollars, but
Use AI to generate your book, and then you can automate the whole process.
I did that. Don't tell anyone. I had ChatGPT help me. I just put in all the information that I have, and please help me organize this. What kind of chapters should I have? And it kind of gives you some stuff, and you're like, oh, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But then you just kind of fix it for yourself. But yeah, that's what people are doing. They're
Oh
generating
yeah,
their own
absolutely.
ChatGPTs and their own. It's crazy. So
One of the things they were showing off at the conference, and this is still far from perfect, but AWS now has an AI as a service that you can basically, they give you like the engine,
mhm.
the thing that makes it work, and then you feed in your business data,
Yep.
and then you can have it do things for your business. Like, I don't know, somebody opens up a customer service ticket. If it can answer it, it'll answer it based on the data you've given it. That way, you don't
Mhm.
even have to have somebody manning the phone, which you can argue whether that's good or not. But you
Like
know,
you could get these AIs to say, "Hey, go into my website and do XYZ," and it will boop in like 5 seconds.
yeah, yeah,
Well, maybe not that short, but
they're pretty quick. I was fooling
yep.
around with having Microsoft's generate me pictures.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've noticed, the Bearded Jeeper and FM Jeeping have been playing around with that. They've been sharing some of them on social media,
Oh, I'll have to go pay
where
more closer attention.
like they've got this cool like Kyle Bearded Jeeper he's really got it honed in where he's got this character that's like a skull with the beard, his logo basically, right?
Right,
But
right.
it's like an actual being, right? And it's doing stuff on an XJ, which is exactly what he's been doing
Yep.
on his channel. I'm like, how the heck did you get it so specific? And he's like, I just kept trying, and this is
You
what I came up
gotta
with.
yeah. Mary, my boss at work, she's got all that stuff. And so we've been playing around with that. We like put a Santa in a red YJ and have TNT products as the gifts. And there's some where it generates and you're like, why is Santa sitting in the engine? And why is,
Yeah,
there's still, like it thinks Santa's in the sleigh, and there's still
yeah.
some
I
tweaks and stuff you got to work with.
I had trouble getting it to recognize the different Jeep models. Like it doesn't understand. I tried it by year. I tried it by the moniker. I tried it by, a number of things. And just about everything it came back with was either a CJ or a JK.
Right.
So I thought it was
That's
kind of weird that way, but it's AI. We can't expect
right.
it to know everything, can we?
Shh, shh, shh. They're gonna come after us.
Yeah. The AI
Oh,
mafia. They're going
I
to come get
know.
me.
I know. So tonight we have a topic in perfect timing because here in Cheyenne it was a beautiful 62 degrees yesterday, and now the winds have come up and it's freezing. So it's a good time to start talking about cold weather, and we're gonna pick cold weather camping tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
We teased this last time around. We even got an email from a listener. So
uh-huh.
I'm sure I know some of that. So, it was very helpful. Some of the information that was in that email, and that was your buddy, right?
Videos. Yeah,
Yeah,
videos.
videos. Who's
Yep.
in chat? Thank you.
Yep.
Very informative stuff. So some stuff in there I didn't know about, and I'm sure some of that has gone into informing. It informed some of the stuff I put in the notes. I don't know about
Yep.
you.
Yep.
So good stuff.
Definitely.
Thank you for the feedback. And folks, if you want to send us feedback, offroadinsiders@gmail.com is how you do that. So, feel free to send us suggestions or feedback or just useful info like videos did. Anyway, we should actually talk about the topic, shouldn't we? Instead of just.
Oh, we'll start with we're gonna talk about tent camping versus like your RV or camping in a lodge.
Yeah,
Um,
camping in a
so
lodge,
yeah,
is that really
right.
camping?
Yeah. So that's glamping, I guess. So we're gonna talk about tent camping in the cold.
Okay.
So we'll start with choosing the right tent. Um, and I'm pretty bad at this, but I don't do a whole lot of cold weather camping. I just
Hmm.
have a regular old Walmart tent.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna go like where it's cold or in the snow, you really need to think about a, a better tent that's made to withstand the cold and snowy
So
conditions.
yeah, so I'd assume they make something like an insulated tent. Like, is that true? Because every tent I've ever been in has always had a very thin wall, right?
Right.
I'd imagine you put something that's at least thicker so that it keeps some of the cold out. But
Right. They have four weather, or are they called four weather, four season type
okay,
tents.
I'm gonna look
Um,
up four season tents because I'm
yeah.
curious.
Because I know my tent has mesh all the way around the top, and
Yeah,
that's for ventilation and airflow. And then you have the little rain tarp over. So
it looks
my
like these are made of a thicker,
a thicker
almost
material,
like a canvas material.
like the old tents back in the 70s that I used to camp in, the old Coleman green. That's probably you
Yeah,
weren't even
right.
born then. um, but those are the kind of tents. God, I can't even imagine how hot they must have been in the summer.
Look,
But pick
I was a Cub Scout and then a Boy Scout from the early '80s on, and one thing that is true about most Scout troops is they have a bunch of hand-me-down gear that's like from
correct.
long ago. So I've seen lots of older tents. Trust me.
Yeah. But yeah, having a properly vented tent, you want it vented, but one
Yeah,
that is going to keep the warmth inside, but also keep it ventilated because you
they've
don't
got
want the condensation building up inside your tent.
they've got some listed here that look like they are that standard nylon material,
Hmm.
but a lot of them are sort of dome shaped, probably to help with wind and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of them also have this really thick. I shouldn't say really thick, but thicker canvas
Hmm.
type material, which would probably keep out wind better and things like that. So yeah, there's options out there, but you're going to want to look for a tent that's rated for colder weather is really what it comes down to.
And then when you're in your tent and you're going to, depends on if you have a cot or if you're going to sleep on your sleeping bag or a sleeping pad or a air mattress, you're going to want to have your floor insulated because that ground is going to be cold. Um, like a thick sleeping pad, or um, they say don't use the air mattresses. Maybe
Yeah.
some other type of foam pad is better. This helps prevent, cold from seeping through the ground into you and when you're sleeping.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard any sort of barrier is better than nothing.
correct.
I want to say I've heard the same about the air mattresses. If it is an air
Uh-huh.
mattress, it should be one that also uses foam. Like some of those auto inflating ones are full of foam.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I guess the air is not as good of an insulator. I've also heard a lot of good things about using a cot instead because it gets you
Up
more
off the
than
ground.
just a couple inches off the ground. You could be like up to a foot off the ground in a cot, right? But then you still want to have a layer of insulation underneath you because you're going to have air beneath
Mhm.
you, right? So, that could be it could still be chilly.
When I went on, that overland adventure back in 2019, we brought a wool blanket that we
Hmm.
set down on the air mattress between us and between the person and the air mattress.
Mm,
Um,
that would work.
right, and then, of course, you have a quality sleeping bag that's
Yeah.
rated.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that the email outlined that I guess I would have thought of if I had ever really looked into really truly cold weather camping, is that the rating on your sleeping bag isn't necessarily a comfort rating, it's a keep you alive rating, right? It's a you won't freeze to death at this temperature rating,
Right.
which is not the same as comfortable,
Right, right.
right? So overestimate, right? If you think you're going to be in sub-freezing weather, get a sleeping bag that's rated like 20 or 30 degrees below where you think you're gonna be.
And they say, and I hate these kind of sleeping bags because I cannot sleep all scrunched up, is the mummy style.
Oh, I love those. They're
Oh,
so much more cozy, I think, than the old style sleeping bags. Yeah,
I I
I
can't
got
sleep in those.
my first my dad had a military surplus down uh sleeping bag, mummy bag. And that was the first one I'd ever seen. But it was like World War II era or something.
Mhm.
And he said the thing was so hot he couldn't sleep in it in anything but cold weather because it was full of feathers. It was literally down,
Right.
right? But those things are designed so that you can just zipper yourself up into the thing and sleep outside in the elements. That's
Correct.
how hot they
Right.
are. But Modern sleeping bags, if you get a nice mummy bag, it'll zip up so it's like up around your face, and all that really sticks out is so you can breathe, and everything else is nice and cozy in there.
And you
I
don't wanna put your whole face inside the sleeping bag,
Right.
because then you start breathing, and that's the carbon dioxide, and then it starts to
Yeah,
the
I mean
moisture.
the moisture is one thing. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but at least my own sleeping bag, it's
Right,
not made of a material that won't breathe.
right.
So it's not like you're going to get too much CO2 built up inside of a sleeping bag. It's not like you put your head inside of a plastic bag or something. But yeah, you definitely the moisture is a thing that,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about this. I think there's another one about this, that
Right.
moisture is the enemy, right? Like anything wet will get cold or frozen.
Correct, correct.
Bad.
Bad, bad moisture.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, like with anything and hiking or anything in the cold, it could be really cold in the morning, it's gonna be nice in the afternoon, and then it's gonna get cold in the evening. You want to dress in layers.
Mhm.
They now have all that moisture wicking, dry fit, all those different ratings. Under Armour, I think, was the first company that started doing that, I think. But you're gonna
No,
wanna
they've been around for a long time.
yeah.
I Not necessarily from a camping perspective, but I've been hunting since
Oh,
like
okay.
1992, right?
Right.
And even then, there were thermal underwear that would wick, and there were socks that would wick. They're probably better today than they were then. But that brings up a good point. If you're going to be moving around and you're dressed in layers, take off the upper layer or two in order to not get overheated while you're moving
Mhm.
around. Because as soon as you start to sweat, when a layer gets wet, it's going to stay wet, right? So that stuff that wicks it away from your skin is good, unless you're going to be in that those clothing all day, right? Because then your outer layers are going to be damp, and again, damp water will help take heat away from you, right? Which is not what you want when it's cold outside. So when we were hunting, right, you'd get up at 5 in the morning to get out to your spot before the sun came up. You'd be hiking in the bitter cold because it's the middle of winter, and you're like, "Oh, I better bundle up." Well, by the time you got to your tree stand, you're soaking wet because
Mhm.
you just hiked up the side of a mountain or something, right?
Right.
So what we would do is we would take off our coats and put them in our backpack, and then you'd be cold when you started walking, but as soon as you started moving, you would get warmed up from your body, your blood flow and everything. And then as soon as you get to the stand and you've cooled down just a little bit, you throw that coat back on and you stay nice and toasty all day.
I a tip that I do is when I go to bed at night in the tent, I get my clothes that I'm gonna wear the next morning, and I put them in the sleeping bag with me. So you keep them warm, or you could
Hmm.
put them underneath your sleeping bag between that, but it helps keep the clothes warm, so you when you get up in the morning, you're not putting on cold clothes. And you don't wanna sleep with a whole bunch of layers in your sleeping bag either, because then again, like what Nate just said about the hiking and you just get hot because, well, especially if you're, getting older and you're a female and you're going through the menopause, the hot flashes and all that. But anyway, you don't want to get sweaty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many times
Mhm.
do you wake up, at home in your nice comfortable bed and you're either too hot or
Right,
actually sweating, right?
right.
Excuse me. You don't want to get your sleeping bag wet for one. You don't want to get you wet for two, and any clothing that's near you or in the bag with you, you don't want to have wet
Mhm.
because then you're going to have to
Correct.
find some way to dry it. And if it's cold enough outside, it's not going to dry. It's just going to freeze.
Mhm. And, always wear a hat.
Yeah.
Keep your head warm. And they say, I read that, everyone says, "Oh, you lose so much heat from your head." Well, you lose heat from any part of your body that's not covered. So,
You will Wearing a hat does a whole lot to keep you warm, though. That
mhm. Oh, agree.
and your back, believe it or not, like where your kidneys are, all your
Mhm.
blood passes through your kidneys because your kidneys filter your blood, right? So if you keep that part of your body warm, then as your blood gets filtered, your blood will warm up in that area of your body and help keep the rest of you warm, right? That's another trick I learned hunting. We used to put heat packs right on our lower backs because that would help keep the rest of your body warm. And a hat. Don't forget the hat.
And that's why, like, for me, I tuck my first shirt in, like the long johns,
Hmm.
and then you have another shirt, and you have that over, just kind of like weave your clothes. So we learned that a lot growing up with the snow. Tuck your pants into your socks because you don't want
Hmm.
that snow to get into, because you don't want to get your feet wet either.
Yeah.
And we used Wonder bread bags.
Mm.
We put our socks on, and then you
Yep.
put the Wonder bags, the bread bags on your over your socks, and then you'd put them in your boots.
Yep. Yep. Because you don't want your feet to get wet.
No, yeah,
And
we
then
always did that.
weirdly, you'd come home and your feet are wet anyway because none of the sweat escaped.
Right, right, because you got them locked up in those plastic bags. So where
Yeah,
are
there's
we?
some things seem counterintuitive, like, oh, I really want to stay dry, so I want a
Uh-huh.
barrier that will not let any moisture in. Well, that barrier may not let any moisture back out either, right?
Correct.
So that's
Right.
just as big of a problem.
It's a catch 22
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes.
But they have a lot of
So
these like wonder materials now that will let moisture out but
mhm,
not in. Gore-Tex, I think, is one of them that's supposed to let moisture out, but it's not supposed to let it in. I mean, mixed results, right? Anything that sounds too good to be true probably is, but
mhm.
enough of those together will help you.
So just pack extra for when
Yeah,
if your socks start getting wet, take them off and put new socks on. If you're going
yeah.
through 3 or 4 socks a day, that's okay. Just pack extra always.
Mhm.
Um, and
Let's see.
talking about
So,
us keeping dry, you need to keep the inside of your tent dry as
yep,
well.
yep.
Um,
Yeah, the more moisture you get inside of your tent, I mean, well, it could freeze on the inside of the tent for one,
mhm,
because the tent is only so thick, right? So the inside of that tent might be chilly right on the inside of the fabric. If there's moisture on there, then it'll get frozen, and
right.
having ice inside of your tent will do more to keep you cold than warm, that's for sure.
Mhm,
Not to mention the weight on the tent, right?
right.
There may be snow on the outside of your tent, which is not great. You can knock that off pretty easily, but snow frozen or water frozen to the inside of the tent is going to add weight. Could eventually collapse the tent if there's too much of it.
Mhm,
I could be going to extremes there, but you know what I mean.
right. Well, let's just hope we're not camping when it's that cold.
Yeah. Plus,
Now,
frozen moisture on the inside of the tent will make snow stick to the outside of the tent more easily because it's
mhm,
already at the right temperature.
right.
But keep that in mind too. You don't want snow sticking to the outside of your tent.
So I know you talked about the Boy Scouts. My kids were in it too. Did you ever get, I think it's the polar bear patch
No,
where you camp below a certain temperature? I can't
I
remember what it is.
honestly, I hate the cold. I really do. I hate the cold.
Why are you living in Pennsylvania then?
Excuse me. I like the cold in manageable bites. When we did cold weather camping, it was usually at a what's the word I'm looking for? A scout camp that either had log cabins that weren't heated, right? But you'd have to build a fire and tend it and stuff to keep it warm inside. It didn't have any running water. It wasn't like glamping, but it was at least shelter from the elements, right?
Mhm,
So I've never really done much outdoor tent camping in the snow and in the cold. Um, but I learned all of it through the scouts, right?
right.
I just never had any desire to try it.
So I was with the boys. I obviously didn't get the badge because I'm not a Boy Scout, but
You should have got an honorary badge.
yeah.
Dang it, if you're going to camp in the cold like that.
So it was tent camped in the outdoors for at least 24 hours, during which the outdoor temperature stayed at 32 degrees or below. So yeah, and it was below. And
Yeah.
actually, this was up in Gettysburg where we camped
Hmm.
when this happened. And you
Yeah,
know where
that
that is.
sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like. I know there are a number of camps around Gettysburg. I stayed at one of them once. It was over the summer though. And we
Hmm.
did like a whole week hanging out in Gettysburg and hiking all the battlefields and stuff. That
Yep.
was a fun trip.
And the Boy Scouts do a lot of stuff at Antietam where they put out the candles for the remembrance of the
Hmm.
fallen soldiers and all that. So yeah. And then we've been talking about ventilation,
Hmm.
just keeping that moisture. Um, out of whatever you're sleeping in. And some people could be camping in their vehicles too.
Yeah.
Sleeping. A lot of people I know sleep in their Jeeps.
Yep.
Um,
So there's regarding ventilation. I mean, the one thing is for moisture, right? If there's ventilation, moisture shouldn't build up as easily. But a thought I had, and this is also very applicable to vehicle sleeping in the vehicle. If you're running that engine to stay warm, be careful about the exhaust, like
correct.
back venting into the vehicle. Sometimes when the vehicle is sitting idling, especially older vehicles, because a lot of times when we're out on the trails, we're not in, a 2023 something or other
Right.
that's built to be as airtight as possible. You're in like an old claptrap that you put together that's like from the 80s and there's holes in the body and all kinds of stuff. Exhaust can get into the cab, and if it, especially in a vehicle, in the cab, it's going to build up in there. The same thing could happen in a tent if it's not ventilated well enough. If you're using some kind of a heat source that creates
Hmm.
CO2, right? So if you've got something burning inside of your tent, which sounds like a terrible idea to begin with, but there are safe ways to do that. Um, if you're sleeping in a running vehicle, have a CO2 detector. Video says in the chat. Good idea. Keep a CO2 detector in your vehicle if you're going to sleep in there. And I guess the same could apply to a tent. So just things to
Now,
keep in mind.
I will say I have a buddy heater, and when I was at AOAA camping, I used it all night. I
Hmm.
didn't die. I didn't
Good.
start it on fire. Because if you do tip it over, and yes, some of the parts are still a little hot, but it automatically shuts off.
Hmm.
It's one of those things. But
So it could melt the floor of your tent instead of lighting it on fire. Probably better.
yeah, but it has like a little brace on the outside, and I
Okay.
mean, it's hot, but it's not. It wasn't like that hot because I touched it a
They
few times.
they make heaters that are meant to sit outside the tent, don't they? That have like a vent hose that goes into the tent so that it
Ye-
blows hot air in.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if it was a homemade thing someone did once, or if it was. I wasn't paying too much attention to it.
I know
Um,
I've seen things like this. I just don't know what the product is called.
yeah.
Videos here says that propane heaters generate a lot of moisture. Do they also generate CO2? I don't know if a byproduct of burning propane is CO2. It might be. I don't know. Diesel heaters do that. Diesel heaters do what? Mike says in the chat.
I think
Generate
when you're
CO2?
no, I think when you were talking about pumping them into the tent, that's about when
Oh,
they were.
okay. That makes
Well,
sense.
they might be a little behind us, so
That could be. That could be. There's going to
yes,
be a slight delay in the stream.
right. So
Trying to have voice conversation with the people in chat
right.
sometimes is
I don't know
a
how many
challenge.
seconds. I don't know how many seconds behind us they are. Yes, propane generators, CO2. What about
Yeah.
diesel
I'm
heaters?
almost positive diesel does,
Hmm.
because that's all over with fossil fuel consumption or whatever. Diesel is another
Right.
fossil fuel like gasoline. Fossil fuels generate CO2. Haven't you watched the news, Tammy?
No, I know.
CO2
I
is going to
know.
kill us all.
I know. So I will say the buddy heater, I used one of those, the larger propanes, and after 8 hours, was it 8 hours or 6 hours? I can't remember. It runs out. So it's like 4 in the morning and you wake up and you're freezing because you've run out of propane. So, maybe try not to go to bed until like 1 in the morning, and then you're
Yeah, right.
you're fine until 6.
Because there's
Um,
nothing worse than the first time you crawl out of that sleeping bag in the cold.
oh,
You're
I
just gonna be like,
know.
I don't want to get out. I'm staying in
Yep.
here.
Yep, for sure. So, yeah,
Excuse me. Every now and then the cough sneaks up on me. Let me grab another cough drop.
that's fine. So, then other suggestion is hot water bottles. However, for me, this is just way too much work. When I go camping, I don't want it to be a chore. I want to enjoy it, and I want to do as little as possible of setting up and all that kind of stuff. So I would rather use hand warmer packets. But
Yeah,
everywhere I've searched, they say hot water bottles, as long as they're tight and closed up, so because you don't want to get wet, are great to place in your sleeping bag to add warmth in the night, especially down by your feet.
you mean those rubber ones that are made to go
I
like at the foot of your bed?
I think that's what they're talking about. Yes.
Okay.
I guess what they used to use instead of a heating pad back in the day. They would use
Hmm.
way back in the day. Um, I don't know. I carry hand warmer packets with me all the time. You can shove them in your boots.
Yeah.
In the winter, you can put them in your pockets and your gloves.
Be careful. Some of the cheaper ones get a little hotter than you might want them to be. Like they're not going to
Yes,
burn you, but they'll make you sweat.
right.
I've had that problem hunting also because I used to stick them in my gloves, and if you put them on like the back of your hand or whatever, so again, so that you follow blood flow. And sometimes they would get so warm, my hands would be sweaty.
Hmm.
And then, of course, as soon as the pack wears out, your hands are cold because now they're damp.
Right. So, solution to all of this: go get a hotel room where they have
Yeah,
heat.
there you go. There you go.
uh, um,
Maybe plan your cold weather camping days one day on, one day off, right?
right, right,
Go
right,
camp in the cold one night, sleep in a hotel the next. Camp in the
right.
cold the next night, sleep in a hotel the next. Then you can use the facilities there to dry all your stuff. And I'm
Yeah,
kidding, don't do that. That's the cheap way out.
yeah. We're just joking. Um, Another thing is, I know there are electric blankets made for camping to plug
Hmm.
into inverters and all that. I actually got an electric blanket from my sisters for Christmas, and it plugs right into my Jeep's cigarette lighter. But of course, the Jeep needs to be running for my, well, it's not a cigarette lighter anymore. I guess they're not called that.
It's a
That
power
just,
port or whatever they
yeah.
call it now.
Sorry, I'm showing my age. I still call it a cigarette lighter. Um,
Can you even buy a car with a cigarette lighter in the cigarette lighter adapter anymore?
I don't think so.
I don't know if they even
Or
do that anymore.
the little ashtray.
Yeah, the
Um,
little ashtray.
oh my God, you'd get my grandparents' car, and there'd be full of cigarette butts.
Remember they were on the back seats, on the backs of the
Yeah.
backs of the front seats, so the people in the back could smoke too.
Yes. Good Lord.
What a weird
Um,
place we lived in.
yeah, crazy. And my dad having his Pabst Blue Ribbon beer in between his legs, listening to the Twins game as we're driving to my grandparents' place. I mean, that was just normal. Um, oh, so this electric blanket saved me last winter just driving to work because we had wind chills of 35 below here in
Oh, that's right. You
Cheyenne.
had like crazy cold weather last year, didn't you?
Yeah, and
Our winter was super mild last year.
I plugged in
We got all the cold.
that blanket and I wrapped it around me while I was driving. And mind you, I just had a 10-minute drive to work,
I
but
know.
that's how cold it was.
Yeah, but in a soft top Jeep, that's like forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But anyway, that look, research electric blankets to bring with you. But again, you don't want to get too hot.
Yeah, and you're going to have to manage electricity then
Correct.
as well as heat and moisture and all that stuff because if it plugs into an inverter, it's probably designed to run off 110 in your home, which is expected to be pretty much limitless, right? You're only
Right.
limited by as long as your commercial power is on. So they don't care necessarily how many watts that's going to draw. The more watts it draws, the faster it'll draw down a battery, right? So if you plug that into an inverter in your vehicle, one, your inverter has to be rated high enough to push that many watts or pull that many watts, whatever. Otherwise, you could burn up your inverter. I've done that, not with the heated blanket, but with
Right.
an air pump for an air mattress that we plugged into an inverter. Because again, it was designed for home use, and it was the only thing we had. Well, it burned up the inverter. But two, it'll draw down your battery a lot faster. If it's something that's designed for a vehicle, or if it's like plugs into USB, like a USB adapter, those pull a lot fewer in the wattage world, the wattage range. Um, they won't get as hot as quickly, right? So if you want something that just takes the edge off, that might be perfect. If you want something that's going to like save your skin and keep you nice and warm,
Hmm.
then you want a higher wattage blanket, which of course then you have to think about how are you powering it? How are you making sure that you don't run out of battery and you're stranded in the middle of nowhere? That sort of thing. Maybe you run dual batteries so that you have a separate battery that if you draw that down to nothing, your vehicle will still start, that kind of thing.
And this today, as I left work, I'm like, God, geez, it's so cold and windy, and I'm imagining these poor, I want to call them pilgrims, but they're not pilgrims. The pioneers back in the day.
Hmm.
I mean, they survived. They made it. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have buddy heaters and diesel heaters. And I think
But they were man's men.
right, I think if you're just be simple and the layers and wool blankets and
Well, that's the other thing to consider is, yes, enough of them survived, but a lot of them didn't.
well, true. Well,
So there was definitely a high percentage of death for
just,
the
when they get caught in a blizzard here in Wyoming, of course,
yeah
yeah,
for the pioneers that were exploring this world before we had
right.
infrastructure out here. So yeah,
But I don't think any of them really had tents, so to speak. The Mormon hand cart group of people, um, the whole clan died here in Wyoming during a blizzard back in the day. But I just think if hopefully if you're going to be camping in extreme temperatures like that, you're going to be a little smarter. But just if it's going to get like into the 30s or 40s, just having a good sleeping bag, dressing properly, and layering, I think you're going to be fine.
video says that the pioneers also had natural materials for clothing, which is probably true. They wore like pelts and things.
Yeah,
They had
bear
like
skin.
they had
Bear
like
skin.
leather that's lined in fur, right?
Right.
That keeps bears warm.
Right. Right. So go out there and get yourself Jason Momoa was in a TV series about fur trappers and he wore this big long fur coat. So go out and get yourself one of those, a bearskin coat.
I bet he looked like an absolute barbarian wearing it too, right?
Yes, yes. He's my hero. Um,
Jason Momoa.
yeah, he's Aquaman. You know who he is, don't you?
I remember him
Yes.
from the science fiction TV show Stargate Atlantis.
Oh, he was in that.
That's the
I
first
did
time I ever
not.
saw him in film. I'm pretty sure that was him, Jason. Yeah, it's Jason Momoa.
Mhm.
He played a very similar character. Um, he was like the mountain man kind of
Right.
persona.
Right.
Yeah, like the native.
So then campsite selection. That's big on any if it's cold weather, sunny summer days and nights, the
Oh
rainy
yeah,
season.
even if it's like hot and humid outside, you got to worry
Yeah,
about rain. You got to worry about animals. You got to worry about whether it's level, whether you're going to roll out of your tent in the middle of the night.
right. If it's going to flood in that area, that happened to
Yeah,
us at Assateague for Boy Scout family camping. All the parents are camping. Oh, we're going to
you
camp here in this cool spot.
you
And
didn't
the
build a trench. You didn't dig a trench around your tent. That's what you get.
and all the boys, they're like, "No, we're going to camp over here." And we're like, "Oh, no, that's dumb." Our tents flooded. We had 3 inches of rain. Our air
Yep.
mattress was floating. My ex-husband at the time, my husband, ex-husband, and my younger son and myself, we all had to fit in our Dodge Journey at like 2 in the morning. And all the boys are totally fine. They're in the dunes and
We all have a camping story like that, I'm sure.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
we used to, even if we were at like the most commercial of campgrounds ever, if when I was with the Boy Scouts, the first thing we did if there was any rain in the forecast is dug little trenches around our tents, uphill, right? So that if the water was flowing, it would go into the trenches.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Huh. So
And we fill them
yeah,
back in before we left because campgrounds don't like it when you
right.
dig holes in their campsites.
Right. And you're supposed to leave it better
Yeah.
than you found it.
Yeah.
But yeah, look for natural barriers to block wind if there's going to be lots of wind, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yep. All right. So we're getting close on time. We have 2 more things to cover.
Yeah. Oh, good lord. Good lord. Because there's some good
And
news stories
we
too.
have another thing to cover, so we better hurry. All right. So
Yeah.
eating high calorie meals, right? That'll
Yep.
help your system sort of stay, what's the word I'm looking for, active and whatever.
Right.
Um,
Keep you warm because it's burning calories.
right.
Maybe.
That's the word I'm looking for. Brain's
Yeah.
a little foggy still. Sorry.
Yes.
Um,
And then emergency preparedness. And there are so many different websites out there. What should I include in my emergency kit? Just Google's can be your friend there. First aid kit, extra food, light source, communication.
metabolism. That's the word I'm looking for.
Metabolism.
Thank you,
Yes.
videos. Another thing on high calorie meals. I never tested this myself, but we were told in the Scouts that chocolate and foods like chocolate, like actual like baker's chocolate, will
Mhm.
actually will help your body raise its temperature by up to 5 degrees. You may want to do some research on that before you count on that to save your life, but that's what we were told, right? So that goes into like the same idea, right? Like eat foods that can help you maintain body heat.
I just Googled it.
Tell me if it's true, or did my
Yep.
Boy Scout leader lie to me?
um. Anyways, I will look at that. You can go on to the next thing.
So the next thing I had thrown in some stuff in here for signs to watch for, because
Oh yeah,
if you're
these
going to
are
be
good.
out,
Yeah.
if you're going to be out in the cold, and you can Google these yourself because the list is a lot longer than what I included in here. You want to watch out for frostbite and hypothermia. For frostbite, it's a little easier to deal with than hypothermia. Hypothermia is when like your body temperature starts to drop because you're so cold. And then you usually need like external assistance, whether it's just from another person who's not affected or medical assistance, right? But anyway, with frostbite, watch out for tingling skin, stinging or burning sensations. And I've actually experienced these things while out hunting, right? Because it gets really cold here in Pennsylvania sometimes. Extremely cold skin or loss of feeling, and you'll also get almost like a painful burning sensation when you finally get back into an area where you get external heat back into that skin because it was so cold for so long. And somebody once told me that the pain receptors for cold and for hot are so similar within our bodies that sometimes extreme cold feels like extreme heat,
Mhm.
right? So these are things you're going to want to watch out for. For hypothermia, on the other hand, general loss of speech or motor skills. So trouble speaking or like mumbling, trouble thinking. I'm having that right now, mainly because of my cold,
Right.
not because I have hypothermia. Trouble walking or general clumsiness, right? So like you're losing basic motor skills. A weak pulse, which means like your heart's probably slowing down. Drowsiness, also a sign of low blood oxygen or your heart slowing down. Um, and loss of consciousness, of course, that's a bad thing. I mean, it's hard to watch out for loss of consciousness. You can watch other people for loss of consciousness, I suppose. And I've also been told that in extreme cases of hypothermia, that same sensation thing I was talking about, you'll actually feel too hot. Like there have been cases of people that have been stranded in the extreme cold where when they found them, they had stripped off all their clothing because they felt like they were too hot
Mhm.
because they were that far gone, right? And they tried to take off their clothing to feel better. And then, of course, the cold got them anyway. So these are things like you definitely want to be aware of when you're out in the cold like that. And again, research solutions to these things too, right? In the Boy Scout manual, there were a bunch of like quick remedies, maybe not quick remedies, but like emergency remedies for things like someone's experiencing hypothermia. Because if you don't act quickly, you could actually cause damage to your body.
Mhm.
So look into those things and be ready for them.
And the chocolate thing, it's just temporary, likely just a temporary thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that this is going to last you for
Right.
days, but it is a
They said
temporary
likely.
thing.
And
Yeah.
I added in our show notes in case when you guys want to go check, it's from healthline.com. 15 ways how to increase your body temperature for when it's cold, when you're cold, things you can do. So that link is in our show notes.
So there you go. Cold weather camping and a little bit of cold weather preparedness all in one.
There you go. Yep. Hey, and folks, don't forget to go check us out at offroadinsiders.com, Instagram at offroadinsiders. And we would love for you guys to share your thoughts with us. You can email any show suggestions or anything at offroadisinsiders@gmail.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure you share us with your friends.
Yeah, more listeners, the better.
Yep.
All right. Do you think we can get
So
through the news quickly enough that we're not going to go too far over?
I don't know. There's what time is it? Oh, I think so.
We got like 7 minutes left.
Yeah. These are three really good stories
Okay.
that
I
I
haven't even
found.
looked at them yet because I've been so busy with everything else. I had to
Yeah.
take a day off of work this week, which meant all the stuff that I had to get done this week got delayed by a day. So, yeah.
So this is from the manual. It's a just some sort of website. I think it's a guy's blog, but it's a news story about Jeep Wrangler 4xe they're recalling them. Guess why? Can anyone
Um,
guess why they're recalling electric vehicles?
are they like catching fire spontaneously?
Yeah, yes. Um, so there's 30,000 of these Jeep Wrangler 4XEs, 4X
EV fires continue to
PHEV
vex the
files.
auto
Yeah.
industry's effort. Eh.
So I remember when they first came out, I don't know if it was a 4XE. I think it was a 4XE. A bunch of them just like caught fire at the Toledo parking lot.
Those were I don't think they were 4XEs. Those were just the new JLs. I think that was
Yeah,
in the like the first run of the JLs.
right. I couldn't remember if they were 4XEs or
There
not.
was some electrical problem with them where they just caught fire sitting in the parking lot.
Right.
See, Jeeps catch fire even without batteries all over the place.
They're claiming 4 Wrangler 4XEs had fires while they were parked and turned off. 6 of the popular off-road vehicles were connected to chargers, although the company did not specify whether the PHEVs were actively charging their batteries.
So I thought, is there a version of the 4XE that is plug-in hybrid now and not? I guess they are plug-in hybrid. Never mind. I'm losing track. Because there's different classifications, of course. There's like full electric plug-in only, then there's hybrids,
Correct.
and then there's plug-in hybrids. I was confusing the terms there. So yes, the 4XE is a plug-in hybrid, as in it can use the gasoline engine
And
to
the
charge the batteries, or you can plug it in
plug
at
it
night.
in.
Okay,
Correct.
never mind. Sorry.
No,
Complete
it's
tangent.
all it's all confusing.
Yeah.
Um so this next one, I was trying to figure out who this if this is just some random blogger
Is this the
or if
chasing
it's
cars one?
chasing cars or if this is a like some big time legit um media company, but I don't think it is. But this person does lots about us.
Well, I mean, there's this guy at the top says Tom Baker. He lists
Yeah.
himself as an editor. That sounds really
Right.
official.
Right.
And he's got a very nice flannel shirt.
But some people claim they're CEOs of companies too, and you're just looking like whatever. Oh, they're powered by Budget Direct Insurance.
I
They're from Australia, it looks like.
I
Oh,
was
there's a
once
whole crew of them.
I
Oh,
was once
yeah.
half of a partnership that ran a small web host, and in my title I included the word wizard just because I wanted
Yeah.
to stick my finger in the eye of corporate America.
I have that. I have that as one of my keywords in my my YouTube videos, Jeep Wizard.
Yeah, there you go. I was the infrastructure wizard.
So it looks like these folks are out of Australia. But anyway,
Yeah.
and there's a whole group of them. They're like a little group of advertiser or journalists. However, I just found this kind of funny. I don't know, maybe I just don't know enough about this car or not. But it's from out of Australia. They are saying the Ford Ranger Raptor wins the Chasing Cars Off-Roader of the Year.
Off-road car of the year from
Yes.
Chasing Cars. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Which
mean,
that surprised me.
the Raptors are supposed to be like capable vehicles. Although, I mean, I'd be curious what their criteria was.
Right.
It's also a very different auto market in Australia. So,
Correct.
like Jeeps are not nearly as popular as like Land Rovers, for example. Land Cruisers, Land Rovers. So how a Ford won there, I'm not sure, but again, I'd be curious of what their criteria is.
Well,
And
it
I don't.
said they had 6 criteria: fitness for purpose, engineering, technology, packaging, efficiency and value, and holistic advancement of the off-roading segment.
Holistic advancement of the off-roading segment. That's got to
Yes.
be a hard one to judge.
Yes.
How do you holistically advance the
I don't
off-roading?
know. I don't know.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, looks like they say
It was testing
Control
was
V6 car,
conducted in
yeah.
Australia. So yeah, they were pretty vague about what fitness for purpose was, like kind of
Looks like are they saying they only compared these five
yeah, the
models,
Ford,
six
yeah.
models here? the Ford Everest Sport, the
The
Volkswagen
Volkswagen
Amarok. Well, I don't know what a Pan Americana
America
is. I have to look into that. A Range Rover Sport
Sport
and the Range Rover.
Rover model.
So they didn't
So
even compare it to like the
to
Ford Bronco or
or the
the Jeep
yeah,
Wrangler.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean the I've talked to a number of folks who have owned or still own a Ford Ranger, and they say they're good little trucks. So, I'm not too mad about this.
I'm not mad. I just like
Yeah.
kind of surprised me.
I think the lineup of stuff they tested is weird. The
Yeah.
Volkswagen Amarok, is that really a contender here? Oh, it's a little pickup. Okay.
Maybe we're just blinded by our Jeep blinders.
Yeah, that's it. We're just Jeep
I
elitists.
know. We are.
Yeah.
Shame on us.
I didn't realize Volkswagen made a little pickup. That's what this thing is. It looks very similar to like the Ford Ranger and the Chevy Colorado. Maybe not
And
similar, but same class.
right. And for those listening, we're going to have these links in our show notes.
Yeah.
So just, you can check them out there. So
Video
our
says that
last,
Australians have a max tire size of 35 inches. Is that like a countrywide limitation?
I think so. I think because I have a friend, Jimmy Mack. I don't know if he's listening. He claims he's going to email us and try to stir things up.
Stir things up.
Yeah, I
Okay.
challenge you, Jimmy Mack. But I think he's right.
That seems weird for Australia. You think there'd be, I don't know, it just feels like a more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, less restrictive place, but I guess not.
So our last story of the day. Sorry, all you Renegade lovers, the Jeep Renegade. Jeep's least expensive vehicle. Their U.S. sales have declined every year since 2016. So the Jeep Renegade is leaving the U.S. The
Sales aren't decreasing because of the price. It's because they're garbage.
so the Compass, which starts at $29,995, will become the brand's new entry-level nameplate.
Interesting.
Yeah, I drove a Compass once.
My father-in-law drives a Compass. It's a
Yeah.
2011. Not a bad little vehicle. I mean, they're not great, but
Right.
they're not bad. He recently
is
hit a
a-
deer with it, so now we're wondering if it's going to get totaled because they do not hold their value at all.
Oh, I think only the Wranglers probably do.
Yeah. Well, the Wrangler, I mean, the Cherokees did, and then
Well,
they
yes.
got
yes.
really cheap, and then they got really
Now
expensive.
they're getting expensive again. Yes.
So,
I found a bad link for this because you have to subscribe. So I'm trying to find a new one. I'll work on that so people can read it.
oh, okay, I see what you mean. So people can
you
read
have
it.
to. Yeah.
So, I actually was just reading a post on social media earlier today. Somebody was sharing a listing for a Jeep Gladiator Willys Wheeler edition at their local Jeep dealership. $74,000.
Holy, that's ridiculous.
Not even a Rubicon. The Willys Wheeler is a sport trim package. $74,000. Now, this is probably the extreme end of that spectrum. I just out of curiosity looked at one of my local dealerships, and they're more like 45,000. But yeah, $74,000. But it really sort of brought up in my brain the like crazy prices that they're demanding for Jeep vehicles nowadays. And I don't know if this is more wider spread than just Jeep, but I feel like any vehicle that isn't a disposable piece of crap is like 40 grand or more nowadays. Even the disposable pieces of crap are in the 30s.
Yeah,
Right.
is that
And
crazy?
it's just crazy. It's crazy to me that it's gotten this out of hand. Vehicle purchases. I don't know what my kids are going to drive when they're old enough to drive. Like, how are they going to afford a vehicle, let alone a home?
Or even just renting.
Yeah.
It's actually sometimes it's cheaper to buy a house
Yeah.
and pay the mortgage than to pay rent.
Sorry, kids, you're going to have to live in a tent for a little while.
Right. Right.
Got this great episode for you to listen to about cold weather camping for when the winter hits.
Here's your tent and a sleeping bag.
Yep, and a bicycle.
Yeah, an e-bike. Those are fun.
E-bikes are probably just as expensive as cars nowadays. Probably not. I'm kidding. That's total overestimation. Just me being cynical.
Right.
I used to be such an optimist. I don't know what happened to me.
All these nasty people in the world.
Yeah, right. All right. Is that all the news we had?
That's all the news that I could find.
Cool. So this was a fun topic. We're not really certain what our next topic's going to be,
Yeah,
right? Did you think of something while we were talking?
No, I was looking at, and I just like nothing popped out. Maybe Jeep storage ideas.
I don't know. I don't think we
I
have
don't
to
know.
commit to anything just yet. We'll just
Yeah.
have to think about it and make sure we have something before our next show goes live, and we're not
Yeah.
just here chatting. Or we always seem to cut short on the news. Maybe we'll do a news show
We could do that.
just to make up for it.
We'll surprise you.
Yeah, we'll come up with something. All right, well, folks, if you tuned in live, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to us audio only, thanks for doing that too. If you want to subscribe to the show, find us on YouTube to watch us live or anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you can't find us, then let us know. Although I don't know how you're hearing me if you haven't found us yet.
Yeah.
So, at any rate,
maybe someone has us the volume up in their office, and someone else is going,
right. That's totally someone's blaring the Off-Road Insider
right.
podcast down, Main Street in whatever city you live in, and you're like, "Who are those people? I want to listen."
Right. They're cool. They're cool.
Anyway, you can find me at swbcrawler.com, and you can find Tammy at jeepmama.com. And any other interesting words of advice before we close out the show, Tammy?
No, just have a great rest of your week.
Oh yeah. And is this our last show before Christmas?
No.
No, we should have one the week of Christmas, right?
Yep. Right? Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of when anyway,
18th.
I just like my brain derailed on like, what's the next thing again? Never mind. It doesn't matter right now. We'll we'll get back to it later. All right, folks. Everybody have a great one. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Have a great week.